Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode, the final episode in our three-part series on the Christian Sabbath. I hope this conversation has been helpful to you, encouraging to you. We had a lot of fun recording it, but we also hope that you were blessed hearing it. And we hope at the very least that it made you think and reconsider some of these principles that you may not have thought of or thought seriously about before. In this last section, we're going to talk a little bit more practical implications. What does observing a Sunday Sabbath look like, as well as some examples of where we think people historically have maybe gone a little too far. The Puritans and some early church fathers, where some may have taken this principle, this beautiful doctrine of the Sabbath, and taken it a little bit too far. So enjoy this last section. We hope you enjoyed it, but as we close it off, we really want to encourage you to take it seriously, but also to find joy in it and to rejoice in the resurrection of our Savior. So without further ado, here's the last section of our episode titled Sunday Funday, a discussion on the Christian Sabbath.
You're excited.
But I did want to talk about the Puritans when they went over.
Yeah. So if we're gonna push to that view of, okay, what does it look like to celebrate the Sabbath? Because it actually should be celebrated. I thought it was interesting just reading through Hodge there on the Sabbath. He actually referenced that in the early church they wouldn't let the men kneel down to pray on the Lord's Day because it wasn't supposed to be a somber day. It was supposed to be a joyful, rejoicing day that they were supposed to be celebrating. It wasn't supposed to be.
That's incredible.
It was not supposed to be a day when people would fast. You don't come to church going, "Oh, I'm fasting today. I'm trying to, even Jesus talks about not putting ashes on your head and not letting people know that you're fasting. But he's like, what Jesus says, you can't fast when the bridegroom is with you.
I think it is
that?
wrong. I'll say this. This is one of my weird views. I think it is wrong to fast on the Lord's Day. I think it's a feast day. I do not think you should be fasting on the Lord's Day. I just don't think you should be doing that. I think it's right there in the Didache, right in the beginning too.
There you go.
You should not be doing that. But the Puritans once threw him in jail or fined him for smiling. They threw him in jail for smiling on Sunday. And that's too far. They did the exact same thing as the Jews did with Jesus. And that guy's doing exactly what he was supposed to be doing, smiling and enjoying and rejoicing on the Lord's Day. When it comes to recreation, a lot of people will bring up Isaiah 58:13. And let me just turn there real quick and try to make this episode as long as I can. But so here's a verse that you need to wrestle with on your own and come to a conclusion with on your own. He says, "If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Lord, honorable, and shall honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words, then thou shalt delight thyself in the Lord, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth, and to feed thee with the heritage of Jacob thy father, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken it." So obviously, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words. In the context, this is kind of a judgment for going about commerce on Sunday, buying, selling, working, economical judgment. I think in the context, and I've read quite a few resources on this. I think in the context, this is mostly an indictment against business.
Right.
I'll say right now, I don't care if you're a Christian or not a Christian. If you're working or going about business on the Lord's Day, you're sinning. That's just how it is. No apologies about it. Just like if you're killing somebody, you're sinning. It's in the same Decalogue. So unless it's an act of mercy, need to throw that qualification in there. That's how you accidentally create Puritans.
Accidental Puritan.
Yeah.
Hashtag accidental Puritan.
Whoops.
My bad.
Yeah. So
I shouldn't be laughing right now.
but that was good. Um, but I think with recreation, it needs. I don't think this is a specific indictment against breaking out. I don't know, some sort of little game to play with each other on the Lord's Day, or enjoying the creation. Like, hey, let's go on a walk, and there's this really cool park over here. Let's go on a walk over here. I don't think it's an indictment against that. However, that's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope from saying, "Hey, let's break out the football and toss it around with the family," to saying, "Let's go inside and turn on the football game," which I
Right.
do think would be over the line, not good. Um, because you need to do stuff on Sunday that sets the day apart as the Lord's,
Right.
not yours. So that's kind of the general rule. Should I do this on Sunday? Well, is this setting aside my own desires for the Lord or not? I I think it needs to be a joy. You need to break out the wine. You need to break out the pasta. You need to give your kids some candy. Make it a special day for them. Laugh. Be surrounded around fellowship with family as much as you can, but make it a holy day. I, w- I personally am not gonna have football. I'm not gonna be playing sports or in on the TV with my family. Just not gonna be doing that. There's just certain discernment calls you got to make, saying this is making this just like any other day, and I don't want that. Um, but that's kind of up to the individual person. However, I think everybody knows. Especially check your heart. If you're thinking, "Well, I'm gonna watch the game. Well, I'm just gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it because I want to."
And if you tell me I can't watch the game, you're being legalistic.
Exactly.
Right.
If you start throwing around the L word, you probably got to check yourself before you wreck yourself, because this is the Lord's day, not yours. And so we should be asking, how far can I go to make this day the Lord's, instead of how close to the line can I get to doing what I want to do.
And while still not making it a burden, because
Right.
it's still supposed to be a feast day. It's still
Right.
supposed to be a day that's joyous. And when you turn it too much into, well, I need to read 18 chapters of Leviticus, or all 22 chapters of Leviticus on the Lord's Day every day, because that's what the people of Israel did. They read the law on the Lord's Day,
Yeah.
or on the Sabbath. Like, oh, you're going to run yourself in. Or okay, let me pick
Great.
up my systematic theology, and I have
Oh,
to I have to
yeah.
read my whole systematic theology, a whole chapter of the systematic theology. Like, uh, don't put those unnecessary rules on yourself, on your family, but be willing to put something that's an expectation. Like, this is what we do. It's part of our Sunday afternoon liturgy, right? Like,
Right.
we get home from church, and it's not time to kick off the shoes and just veg out. Um, and that's what gets back to what Hodge talked about there was, um, how many of us get to work on Monday morning and go, I hate Monday, because it was a hangover from a misspent weekend.
Right.
Why shouldn't we come into work on Monday going, I spent the whole day praising, worshiping, setting apart that day to the Lord, and I am ready to tackle Monday. Monday ain't got nothing on me. I'm ready to go.
And you did some recreational, maybe the root word recreative, kind of refreshes you.
Yeah.
Meaning, obviously, I don't think you should go too far, but let's say Tim comes over and we're playing around. I don't know. I don't know what we do. Toss around the rugby just a little in the backyard while we're talking.
Yeah.
And talk about maybe the sermon, tossing around a rugby. Um, that's gonna do so much more for you than watching the game. Which, first of all, the NFL is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and so is the NBA. And so you're supporting commerce on the Lord's Day, which you should not be doing. Second of all, why? Like, how is that setting apart the day as special for you?
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that people don't believe, like, oh yeah, it's still the Lord's Day. No, because people say, like, oh yeah, it's Super Bowl Sunday. When's the last time you said it's Jesus Christ Sunday? When's the last time you said it's resurrection? Or maybe Easter. But like, when's the last time that you hallowed Sunday as religiously as you did the Super Bowl? I'm willing to bet 90% of the people None.
Well, I had a conversation with somebody a few weeks ago, and he was talking about the passages that talk about meat sacrificed to idols, and we were like, we don't really have that same social dynamic in our society. Like, you going over to somebody's house, going, was this meat sacrificed to an idol? Can I eat it? And Paul says, don't ask it for conscience sake. And his conclusion was the closest thing that we have to that in our society is a Super Bowl party that you go and you've got this massive spread laid out so that we can watch the football game. And it's a feast laid out for no other reason than to, and I use this lightly, but to worship the NFL.
Right.
It's laid out there, and I think it might be a little bit of a stretch to make that the same as meat sacrificed to idols, but it does bear an ugly similarity there.
And you know what is
that's worth
interesting about
being
that?
careful over.
A lot of people will be like, "So you're telling me, Tim, that I have to go to the store on Saturday and prepare food beforehand? And you're telling me what happens the Saturday before Super Bowl Sunday? The store is packed because people don't even ask questions. Then they're buying Doritos and beans and everything that you can think of to dip your chips in, and they're preparing their butts off for Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, people know how to be religious. People know how to follow the commands of God. They just don't want to.
Yeah.
And that's a serious indictment, and it sucks,
Yeah.
but it's true. And my dad's a pastor, so pastors don't really get to rest that much on Sundays. But yeah, I don't know why I brought that up. I was just gonna bring up like certain ways in which you might have to work if you're a medical professional.
Well, and I'd have to look back up who it was. It might have been Hodge that was talking about it, but that even the clergy who are officiating those services on the Lord's Day, that work is a priestly work. That's you're before the Lord. You are participating in the worship of God. So you shouldn't have to be worrying about whether or not is a pastor going, oh, do I get to rest on the Lord's Day? Like that's the one day a week I work, which is not true. Pastors work more than one day a week.
Yeah.
We'll clear that misconception up.
Mhm.
I love when people bring up, oh, it must be nice to be a pastor to only have to work one day a week.
You wish.
You don't know what it means to be a pastor then.
Yeah.
But regardless, the clergy are still expected to rest on that day, which means
As much as they can.
having your sermon prepared before Sunday morning should be ready to go. Knowing the songs, knowing the liturgy, knowing all that stuff is that when you show up on Sunday morning, despite the fact that you're leading the congregation in those things, you are still a participant and you're still being blessed by that worship. And when you go home, it's a day for rest. It's not a day for just vegging out as a weekend to be a misspent day. And we want to be careful of misspending the day because
Because it's not your day.
whether you're a clergy or not.
I mean, imagine if somebody gives you $100. Actually, I have a good example of this. One time in California, my uncle, he gave me $100. I was like 16. And there's this really cool donut shop down the street, and he was like, "Hey, go to that donut shop, get all the best donuts, and bring it back because we're gonna crush them." And I was like, "Deal." So I rode down there with his $100 in my pocket. Went to pay for the donuts. Checked my pockets; they were empty. I lost his $100, and some guy picked it up, looked at me, and I remembered. I was like, "Why is this guy looking at me? And what is he picking up?" It was the $100, but it wasn't my $100 to lose, and I felt so bad. And I was like, "I'm sorry, I can pay you back." And I just felt bad because it wasn't my $100 to lose.
Right.
Same thing with this day, the Lord's Day, Sunday. It's not your day to use and to lose. It's not your day, and that's something that we have to get in our heads, is that it's not mine. I don't get to binge watch The Office on Sunday because it's not my day. And that's, I guess, being a black coffee cowboy Calvinist helps me, ground myself in the fact that it's not about me,
Right.
but that's something that people need to get in their minds. It's not about you. And the more you do this, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added to you. The more that you take the pains and and do this stuff to be diligent, you're going to start creating a culture around yourself. You're going to marry a wife, and you're going to have kids, and you're going to create a culture. I was just at your brother's for dinner, and they have a little liturgy he does with his kids before their Sabbath dinner, and he's creating a culture around the Lord's Day, around the worship of the Lord. And the more that you do that, the better it'll become. What's going to happen when your kids have kids, and all of a sudden you have 50 people come in your house every Sunday? Now that's going to be fun. That's going to be awesome. At first, when it's just you and your wife, oh man, this kind of sucks. I mean, nobody else wants to do this with us, but you create a culture. You need to be culture makers, not culture writers.
Mm-hmm.
And
writers, as in RIDERS.
RID, yeah, like a wave thing.
But we are culture writers.
Yes, that
WR, like we create the culture, but we don't ride the culture.
Yeah,
I don't know if
it's also
a horse or a motorcycle. I don't know.
I also wanted to bring up the early church.
Okay.
Would you mind reading a couple quotes? Because you texted me some bangers.
Oh dang! Now I have to go back and find them.
Well, when it comes to, so a lot of people will appeal to the early church, and that's great. And so do we. We love the early church. That doesn't mean they were 100% correct on everything. But, however, when the early church is unanimous on something, just they don't even skip a beat, that should give you pause. The early church was unanimous on the sacraments, unanimous on the Sabbath. It is unanimous on Jesus in the Trinity. So when you know that the early church was a bunch of cold-blooded first-day Sabbatarians, that should give you pause to be like, whoa, okay. And that they were. And might I add, the Epistle of Barnabas, I think I was reading the other day, and he grounds the keeping of the Lord's Day in the new creation that Jesus accomplished. And I was so excited when I found that quote. I was like, yes, it's right here. It's right here in the early church. Around 70 AD is when that letter was written. And he says, we keep the 8th day because Jesus accomplished the new creation on it. And I was like, I don't know. I just wanted to throw the book through the window and tell everybody I knew about it.
So Ignatius, Bishop of Antioch in 101 AD, says, let everyone that loves Christ keep holy the Lord's day, the Queen of days, the resurrection day, the highest of all days.
So what happened to that? What happened to that? No day is different than the other thing. Ignatius didn't get the message.
That's 100 AD.
That's a conservative estimate. Wait, is it? Never mind.
101 AD. Irenaeus, on the Lord's day, every one of us Christians keeps the Sabbath. Clement of Alexandria testifies, a Christian, according to the command of the gospel, observes the Lord's day, thereby glorifying the resurrection of the Lord. This goes all the way back
Boom.
to we're testifying of the resurrection of God. Spurgeon, from his catechism.
A lot of people love Spurgeon. A lot of people don't know he was a Sabbatarian.
And a Puritan.
Yeah, probably the last Puritan.
One of the last Puritans, yeah. He says the Sabbath, this is part of his catechism. He says the Sabbath is to be sanctified by the holy resting all that day, even from such worldly employments and recreations as are lawful on other days, and spending the whole time in the public and private exercises of God's worship, except so much as is taken up in the works of necessity and mercy. So that's the that's what we're talking about, the needing to, if somebody's car breaks down on the side of the road, it's okay. If you're a mechanic and you know how to fix that, pull over and help them fix their car. Like that's because that's serving the Lord,
right?
In that an act of mercy.
Mm-hmm.
A.W. Pink, less early church, but
Yeah. Well, he was a pastor here in Colorado.
yeah.
Did you know that?
us, but we view this as early church stuff, right? So
Yeah. Well, the church started really with Billy
no,
Graham, and so this is.
but we're still in the early church.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh right. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Redemptive historically, we are in the early church
Pink and
for
Spurgeon,
sure.
Pink and Spurgeon are still early church fathers.
Yeah.
I ain't scared.
They'll go down as, because they're Baptists, but it's all right.
Pink says, the lasting nature of the perpetuity of this twofold commandment is further evidenced by the fact that in the above reason given for its enforcement, there was nothing which peculiarly pertinent to the nation of Israel, but instead that which speaks with clarion voice to the whole human race. Moreover, this statute was given a place not in the ceremonial law of Israel, which was to be done away with when Christ fulfilled its types, but in the moral law, which was given by the finger of God himself upon the tables of stone to signify to us its permanent nature.
Boom.
What are you going to do? You're
There's not
left.
much you can do.
You're left with a very clear understanding through history that this is what the church has believed. That I would even go so far as to say it's not legalistic to say that we need to keep the Sabbath.
No, it's not.
And it's very clear to say that the keeping of that Sabbath is not just, or to say it's not explicitly said in the New Testament, isn't really a good argument.
It's not a good argument, and it's
that.
also not really true.
Right, it's not
Once
true.
you read Hebrews 4.
But you also don't have where was the second giving of the law? That's Deuteronomy.
Right.
There isn't the New Testament doesn't have a 10 Commandments. So to say, oh well, the command to keep the Sabbath is no longer valid because we're in the New Testament and it's not repeated in the New Testament, despite what we've already talked about, it not being explicitly said there, it is said there. To say that it misses the point, because you can't make that inference, because the apostles believed that the Old Testament was scripture, and unless it was explicitly abrogated, they said it was binding.
Right.
And so regardless of this, regardless of your view of whether or not it's explicitly stated, which I think we've given ample evidence to support that it is there in the New Testament, and not just like grunt work exegesis that you have to go, how do we connect all these dots and make sure that it's there. I think it's very manifestly there. It's pretty clearly presented, but the Old Testament gave us the Decalogue. It gave us the 10 Commandments and said that these were statutes forever. This is the moral law. It's rooted in the character of God, as we've already discussed. Those don't go away. The only time that they can change is
oh, sorry.
You're folding my pages, man.
Sorry, dude.
The only time they can change a changing of those things is for sufficient reason and by a competent authority. So if you're going to change the Sabbath from a Saturday to a Sunday, it's going to require a sufficient reason for it and a competent authority to
and the
say
only
that
competent authority is the Lord of the Sabbath.
So you have Christ and his apostles writing and saying, why? Okay, it's changing to Sunday. Why was this being changed to Sunday? Is there sufficient reason for it? Well, what happened on a Sunday was Christ's resurrection. Okay, that seems like sufficient reason enough. I think all Christians would view that as a sufficient reason to mark a special day, and not just a special day in April, but that this is something worth commemorating on a regular basis. And so then, okay, we have a sufficient reason to change that from Saturday to a Sunday. But then who's allowed to make that? Who's the competent authority to make that change? Well, I think Christ and his apostles had reasonable authority to make that change.
It's also
it's very clear that was a justified change.
Harkening back to when you're talking about, it's not explicitly stated in the New Testament. It's funny because the Jews could have actually said the exact same thing in Exodus. They could have been like, "What do you mean? Remember what? You never told us to do anything." Because it doesn't say, "Oh, here's this new thing. Start keeping this day." It says, "Remember the Sabbath." The Jews could have lobbied the exact or levied the exact same accusation and been like, "What are you talking about? Keep what? Remember what? What are you talking about? You never told us to do that." Well, he never told Cain, "Thou shalt not kill," right? Or maybe he did. Was that after Genesis 9? Doesn't matter. It's natural.
Right.
But uh, it's important because people say, "Well, it's not explicitly stated." Well, Jews could have said the exact same thing, but they didn't. They were like, "Yep, rooted in creation, got it, understand." But I wanted to close with just reading this verse from Nehemiah, and it's about the Sabbath, and it's very good. I love this. Um, it just talks about the happiness of the day. And Ezra the priest, the scribe, and the Levites that taught the people said unto all the people, "This day is holy unto the Lord your God. Do not mourn nor weep." For all the people wept when they heard the words of the law. But he said unto them, "Go your way, eat the fat, drink the sweet, send portions unto them for whom nothing is prepared. For this day is holy unto our Lord. Neither be ye sorry, for the joy of the Lord is your strength." So the Levites stilled all the people, saying, "Hold your peace, for this day is holy, neither be ye grieved." And all the people went their way to eat and to drink and to send portions and to make great mirth, because they had understood the words that were declared to them. It's a holy day, it's a feast day. Live it, rejoice in it, keep it, and have fun.
And remember that when there does come a consequence to not observing those moral commands. Um, and I think, you would agree, a lot of the turmoil that we see in our nation today could largely be traced back to not sanctifying Christ as Lord in our hearts.
Yep.
Even just take Christians. Don't just look at the nation as a whole. Although I think there's valid uh, inference there. But look at the church you go to church for your 90 minutes on Sunday morning, and then spend 8 hours of football watching in the afternoon. Um, you don't have to look far,
Right.
to see, okay, why is the church trending towards liberalism? Why is the church trending towards oh the these commands don't apply to us? Why is it, oh, we've got a virus in our world, let's just close down? We just don't have to meet, it's fine, we'll suspend meeting for a while. What gets us to the point where we feel like that's acceptable? And then fires and riots and civil unrest and all this stuff that comes along with that. It's like we've failed to be salt in the world.
Yep.
Different, preservative, flavorful. Your work will still be there when you get back on Monday. Don't check your emails.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. It's okay if you don't catch the Broncos game. If the Broncos win or lose, it's fine. Like you can worship the Lord and catch the highlights tomorrow. And because we're not saying that watching football or watching basketball or watching baseball is a bad thing. Like those are fun sports. I love watching those sports myself.
On my own time.
But there's value to putting that day aside just for the worship of God. And I think when you look at the passages like Chronicles that says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, I will hear their cry from heaven, and I will heal their land. Look at the promise that was made there to Israel as they had to cry out to God for their mistreating of his law, of following his commands. That principle applies equally to us today. Do we want peace in our society again today? Absolutely. Why are we afraid to go into society and deal with it? Why are we afraid to combat abortion and the rampant sodomy in our culture, the racial issues, the civil issues, all of these things? Why are we afraid of that? Well, because we haven't sanctified, as Peter tells us, sanctify Christ as Lord in your hearts, and then have an answer for everyone who asks for the hope that's in you. We haven't done that. We've not sanctified that day unto the Lord, and so we've missed that opportunity to be salt and light in the culture. And as a result, we see the culture deteriorating around us.
I mean, just in 2012, Colorado had Sabbath laws. Alcohol stores and car dealerships couldn't be open on Sundays.
Yep.
Isn't that crazy?
You couldn't close a mortgage deal on Sunday.
Yeah, those were Sabbath laws. It's in the Constitution that
Yep.
there shall be no laws made on the day of the Lord.
Yep.
I mean, it was so fundamental to this culture in the beginning, but now you have Christians who are angry if you close down on Sundays. One of the great things when I was up in Moscow, Idaho, was seeing how much things were closed on Sunday. It was awesome. It was so cool.
It's like the whole town was a Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, yeah. And what was so cool about it was I'd heard stories about people who found out about the church out there because they were like, why is everything closed on Sunday? Oh, there's a lot of Christians. Oh, we go to this church. It had a witness, a public witness, and a cultural effect.
Yeah.
Don't we want to have that?
Yeah.
I mean,
Let's be salt.
yeah.
Let's make a difference. Let's be set apart. We set apart that day. 1 out of 7. It's a good ratio.
Yeah, it's the perfect ratio.
It's given by God. It's a blessing, not to be afraid, but to treat it as a valuable, glorious thing to be able to worship the living God,
Yeah.
who has revealed Himself. Like, if that doesn't just blow your mind and get chills sent down your back, let that be there. So I think we can cut it off there.
Yeah. Let's let it go.
We're pushing on 2 hours there. We'll probably pick this up at some point again. This is just such a glorious topic.
Yeah, it's a part of life. So, hey, glorify the Lord's Day. Love it, live it, feast on it, teach your family about it, teach your kids about it, and keep the 4th commandment.
Amen.
See ya.